Your Worship, my name is Julian Thompson and I stand here on behalf of Hanif Anwar to make a plea mitigation. The charge that's standing is the taking and driving away of a vehicle belonging to another, which is contrary to Section 12 subsection 1 of the Theft Act 1968. Your Worship, if I may, I have two submissions prior to suggesting an appropriate sentence. The first is with regards to the immediate circumstances of the offence, whereas the second concerns the general circumstances of Mr. Anwar. If I may proceed. Mr. Anwar took an opportunity created by the victim's failure to remove her keys from the car. This was an act of impulse, Your Worship, and definitely not one of a premeditated nature. We therefore believe it should be looked at as giving into temptation and not something done in a malicious manner. There are several factors supporting this notion. First and foremost, as I'm sure you're aware, Mr. Anwar has no previous driving experience. Nevertheless, we do recognise the danger of his actions, as does Mr. Anwar, and we are in no means trying to make excuses for what he has done. It should, however, be noted that based on the facts at hand, things could have been much worse, and what did occur was on a much lower scale of seriousness. No injuries nor no damage occurred during Mr. Anwar's actions, and it could very much have been much worse. Mr. Anwar himself has shown recognition and really wishes to take responsibility for his actions. The fact he panicked and abandoned the vehicle upon realising what he did exemplifies this. What's more, he pled guilty at the first instance, and he's also written a letter of apology to the victim herself to show her his remorse for his actions. If there are any questions, Your Worship, I wish to proceed to my second submission. This is with regard, as I mentioned earlier, his personal circumstances, which are far from ideal, as he has been actively seeking jobs for a very long time now. Mr. Anwar, like many other young people, has struggled to find a secure place in the work environment following the economic recession. Nevertheless, he has tried to stay self-sufficient and independent. Of the job seekers allowance he is currently receiving, £20 of it is put aside as board to his uncle, who he has been living with following being kicked out of his parents' home. What's more, with the exception of £5 which he uses for transport to and from interviews, the rest of Mr. Anwar's money is put aside as he is wishing to save enough money to buy a own flat. This further reinforces the notion that he is trying to be a more self-sufficient, independent individual and contribute to wider society. Before finally suggesting an appropriate sentence, I wish to explain to you the nature of his previous convictions, which include possession of cannabis, the theft of a bicycle, and being carried in a stolen vehicle. All of which, I may wish to add, were due to former gang associations whilst he was living on his council estate. In the aftermath of his cannabis possession, Mr. Anwar voluntarily went into a drug rehabilitation program and has been clean for